The kind of silence that fills a room right before something breaks. That is where the story begins. Not at a desk. Not in a courtroom. Not anywhere safe. It begins in a private dining room on the 14th floor of a building that does not appear on any public registry in Seoul. A room where the wrong word lands like a sentence. Where laughter is always at someone's expense. Where every man seated at that table has spent years learning exactly when to speak and exactly when to go very, very still. Lena Cole walked into that room knowing all of this. She had read every file, memorized every face. She knew which man at that table had 3 offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands and which one had not spoken to his eldest son in 6 years. She knew things about the people in that room that the people in that room did not know about each other. What she did not plan for was him. Rio Jang, 40 years old, head of the Jang network, a name that did not appear in newspapers, did not appear in police briefings, and yet somehow arranged itself behind half the commercial real estate transfers in 3 Seoul districts. A man whose silence in a meeting carried more weight than most people's signatures. He was already watching the door when she walked in. She did not hesitate at the door, did not scan the room the way nervous people do. She simply entered, the way someone enters a space they have already decided belongs to them. 7 pairs of eyes found her immediately. And in the half-second before anyone spoke, something shifted in the room. Something small. Something that would take a long time to name. She had been sent here as a consultant. That was the cover. A cultural liaison for a European investment firm exploring partnership opportunities in Seoul's commercial development sector. Clean paperwork, solid backstory, 2 years of field experience behind it. The meeting had been arranged through 3 layers of intermediaries, the kind of arrangement that tells you everything about who you are actually meeting before you ever walk through the door. The actual purpose had nothing to do with investment. Lena's firm had been tracking financial movement inside the Jang network for 14 months. Payments that routed through shell companies registered in 4 different countries before arriving clean in Seoul. The kind of financial architecture that takes either genius or absolute impunity to build. In Rio Jang's case, it was both. This meeting was supposed to be an observation. Get inside the room. Read the dynamics. Identify which of Rio's lieutenants had independent financial exposure. Get out. Simple. She took the seat assigned to her, the far end of the table, as far from Rio as the room allowed. She noted that. The deliberate distance. The geometry of the room was already a statement. Introductions were made in English. Courteous. Clipped. The particular courtesy of men who are being polite because it serves them to be polite, not because they mean it. Rio said nothing during the introductions. He watched. He had the quality of someone who collected information the way other people collected objects, quietly, completely, with the intention of using it later. She recognized that quality. She had it herself. For 11 minutes, the meeting was professional. Questions about investment timelines, regulatory frameworks, market positioning. Lena answered in English, measured and fluent, contributing exactly enough to seem useful and not enough to seem indispensable. Then one of the men, Yoon, the youngest at the table, the one with the loose smirk she had already clocked as the kind of man who performs for an audience, said something in Korean to the man beside him. She caught every word. She did not react. Before we go any further, where are you watching this from right now? Drop your city in the comments. I want to know where in the world this story is landing tonight. It was at the 17-minute mark that Rio Jang decided to make her a moment. He did it the way powerful men always do it, not with anger, not with volume, with calm, with the kind of ease that tells everyone watching that this costs him nothing. He switched from English to Korean mid-sentence, deliberately, addressing his men, but tilting his attention toward her like a spotlight. He said the firm she represented had sent a very exotic choice of representative, that perhaps they assumed a face like hers would be disarming in a room like this. A decorative strategy. He said it with the measured amusement of a man delivering an observation he found genuinely funny. The men laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Lena did not look up immediately. She finished the sentence she was reading, set the page down with the same deliberate calm she had used when she sat down. Then she lifted her eyes, not to the men who were laughing, to Rio. She held his gaze for exactly 2 seconds. Then she spoke. In Korean. Not the careful, textbook Korean of someone who studied it in a classroom. Not the hesitant Korean of someone working to remember vocabulary. The Korean she used was Seoul-district fluent, the kind that carries register and rhythm and the specific intonation of someone who has lived inside the language long enough that it thinks in them rather than through them. She said in Korean that she appreciated the observation, that in her experience, men who needed to establish a room's hierarchy within the first 20 minutes were usually the ones least confident it would hold on its own. She said she had been in 12 rooms like this one across 4 countries, and the architecture of the insult was always the same. She said she hoped the rest of the meeting would be more interesting than its middle. Then she picked up her document again. The room went completely silent. Not the polite silence of a meeting pausing between agenda items. The other kind. The kind where every person in the room becomes extremely interested in the table in front of them because looking anywhere else feels dangerous. Rio Jang did not move, did not speak, did not look away from her. His face had gone pale. That was the moment. Not when she walked in, not when she sat down, not even when she started speaking. The moment was the silence after, because in that silence, every man in that room recalculated. And Rio Jang, for the first time in longer than he could clearly remember, did not know what to do next. I need to know something. Before she even opened her mouth, did you think she was going to let it go? Or did you always know she was going to answer? Tell me in the comments. Because I had a feeling about Lena from the second she walked through that door. The meeting ended 12 minutes later. Nobody extended it. Nobody suggested a follow-up agenda. The men filed out with the practiced efficiency of people who had been in many rooms like this one and understood that sometimes the most professional thing you can do is leave cleanly. Lena gathered her documents, stood, straightened her blazer with the same economy of movement she had maintained since she walked in. She did not look at Rio again on her way out. She did not need to. What she did not know, what she could not have known from a single meeting, was that she had just done something no one in Rio Jang's orbit had done in nearly a decade. She had made him feel small, not humiliated, not enraged. Something more precise than both of those. The specific, interior smallness of a man who has built his entire sense of self on being the most perceptive person in any room he occupies, and has just encountered evidence that he may not be. That feeling does not leave a man like Rio Jang. It follows him. He stayed at the table after the others left. This was unusual. Rio Jang did not linger. Day, his second-in-command, paused at the door, said nothing, waited. Read the room the way only a man who has been someone's most trusted lieutenant for 11 years can read a room. Then he left quietly. Rio sat in the empty dining room for 4 minutes and 40 seconds. His security detail knew this because they logged everything. He was looking at the empty chair at the far end of the table. 3 kilometers from that building, Lena Cole sat at her desk and did not write a single word for 11 minutes. She had filed the meeting in her head the way she filed everything: systematic, precise, emotional content noted, and set aside for later. She had the financial contact she needed. She had 3 new names to run through the network analysis. She had done exactly what she came to Seoul to do. She should have been satisfied. She was not thinking about the financial contacts. She was thinking about the 4 seconds after she finished speaking. The silence. The way his face had changed. She told herself it was professional, that reading a target's psychological responses was part of the work, that what she had felt in that moment was purely the satisfaction of a well-executed maneuver. She wrote 3 words in her notebook, crossed them out, wrote them again. He understood every word, not just the Korean. He had heard the layers in it, the register, the precision. She had seen it in his face, the specific recognition of someone encountering a mind that operates at a comparable level to their own. She did not know what to do with that. She closed the notebook, opened it again, left it open on the desk, and went to make tea she did not drink. She had a rule, one she had made for herself early in this work and had never broken. Never let a target become interesting. Interesting was the beginning of compromised. And compromised in this work had consequences that went beyond professional embarrassment. She knew this rule, had applied it successfully in 4 previous assignments across 3 countries, had watched colleagues who forgot it have their careers and occasionally their safety unravel in ways that were entirely predictable in retrospect. She stood at the window for a long time. The rule held. She was just not sure it was going to keep holding. By 6 the next morning, Rio Jang had a file on Lena Cole. Not the cover file. Not the European investment firm biography with the clean professional photograph and the impeccable references. The real file. The one that takes connections most people do not have, and a night of very focused inquiry to assemble. It was thinner than he expected. That was the first thing that told him something. A woman who moves through the world leaving that light a footprint is either very ordinary or very deliberate. And nothing about Lena Cole suggested ordinary. Day laid it out for him. Lena Cole, 32 years old. Born in London to a Ghanaian father and the mother from Accra. Educated at 2 universities across 2 continents. Graduate degrees in linguistics and international finance. Speaks 6 languages, verified: English, French, Mandarin, Japanese, Arabic, and Korean. The Korean fluency had not appeared in any of her professional documentation. It was nowhere on her CV, nowhere in her firm's presentation materials. She had hidden it, deliberately. Rio leaned back in his chair, said nothing for a long moment. Then, who sent her? Day had been waiting for that question. He did not yet have the answer. He looked at the photograph for a long time. There was something in the way she moved even in a surveillance still, the specific quality of someone who is always slightly more aware of their environment than the people around them. He recognized it. He had trained himself to move that way. He had never seen it in someone he had not personally trained. Find out, he said. That was all. But Day had worked for Rio Jang for 11 years. He knew the difference between a professional directive and a personal one. This was both. And here is the thing that made me genuinely angry when I understood what was happening. He mocked her, in front of his men. And then, the moment she proved she was more than he assumed, his response was not to reconsider how he treated her. It was to investigate her. To find a way to make her something he could manage again. Does that make you as furious as it made me? Because it should. She saw him before he saw her. That was the first difference from their initial meeting, and she noted it, filed it, told herself it meant nothing beyond the fact that she was always early, and he was precisely on time. She was in the hotel lobby for a separate meeting entirely. A legitimate one for the cover that still needed maintaining. She was crossing toward the elevator bank when she registered him coming through the main entrance. Day 2 steps behind him, 2 other men flanking at practice distance. She had 3 seconds to make a decision. She kept walking. He caught up with her at the elevator. Not running, not rushing. The particular controlled acceleration of a man who has decided he wants something and is not accustomed to the possibility of not getting it. She heard him approach, did not turn. The elevator doors opened. She stepped in. He stepped in behind her. Day stopped at the lobby. The other 2 men stopped with him. Rio pressed the button for the 14th floor without looking at the panel. She was going to the 9th. Neither of them mentioned it. For seconds of silence. Then he spoke. In Korean. Not the performance Korean of the dining room. The other kind, direct, quiet, stripped of theater. You've been in Seoul 7 weeks. Not a question. She kept her eyes on the elevator panel. You've been tracking me for less than 24 hours, she said. Also in Korean. And you already feel comfortable telling me things you learned without my permission. A beat. That tells me something about you. The elevator hummed. The numbers climbed. He turned his head slightly toward her. Not fully. The fraction of movement of a man who is making a concession he has not finished deciding on. What does it tell you?
She turned toward him then.
Just enough. Met his eyes in the mirror rather than directly. That you're not actually as comfortable as you looked yesterday. The elevator reached the 9th floor. The doors opened. She stepped out without looking back. He did not press the door hold button. Did not call after her. The doors closed behind her with the quiet hydraulic efficiency of expensive machinery. He rode the remaining 5 floors alone. Day was waiting in the lobby when he came back down 11 minutes later. He said nothing. Rio said nothing. They walked out together. It was not until they were in the car that Day spoke. Same woman. Rio looked out the window at the Seoul midday street moving past. Find me everything she has touched since she arrived in this city. Her handler called at 2 p.m. She took the call in the corridor outside her room because she needed to be able to move while she listened. Some information needs space around it. The financial thread they had been tracking for 14 months, the one that had brought her to Seoul, the one that had walked her into that dining room, had just intersected with something significantly larger than a money laundering network. Her handler used the word geopolitical. She pressed her hand against the wall. The Jang network was not the source. It was a layer, a domestic infrastructure component inside something that ran significantly deeper, financial flows that connected through Seoul into 3 other capitals that had potential implications for a series of regulatory decisions currently in progress at an international level. Rio Jang was either the architect of something far more significant than they had assessed, or he was a very powerful man who had been used as a conduit by people he had not fully identified yet. Either possibility changed everything about her assignment. How long have you known? She asked. Her handler's pause was 2 seconds too long. We had indicators, he said. We needed someone inside the network to confirm. She understood then that she had not been sent to observe. She had been sent to confirm a hypothesis her organization already held and had not shared with her. She ended the call. She sat on the floor of her hotel room for a long time. She was not panicking. Lena Cole did not panic, but she was recalibrating, methodically, precisely, the way she had been trained to recalibrate when the parameters of an assignment shifted underneath her. The problem was this. If Rio Jang was being used rather than directing, if there were players above him she had not yet mapped, then getting closer to him was not just professionally necessary. It was the only way to understand the full architecture of what she was standing inside. And getting closer to Rio Jang had just become significantly more complicated. Because he already knew she was more than her cover suggested. And because in an elevator 12 hours ago, she had told him something true about himself without meaning to. She had stopped performing for him. That was a problem. Or it was the only useful thing that had happened since she arrived in Seoul. She could not yet tell which. What nobody tells you about becoming the most powerful man in a room is that the room gets very quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The other kind. The kind where no one disagrees with you anymore. Not because you are always right, but because disagreeing with you stopped being safe for them a long time ago. And somewhere along the way you stopped being able to tell the difference between being respected and being feared. Rio Jang knew this about himself. He had known it for years. He had built something extraordinary. He had done it through a combination of intelligence, patience, and the willingness to do what other men described as necessary but could never quite bring themselves to execute personally. He had been 26 when he made his first real decision, the one that could not be unmade. He had made it with clear eyes and a steady hand, and he had never allowed himself the luxury of wondering if there had been another way. There are versions of a person's life that become impossible once certain doors close. He had closed a lot of doors. His father had been a different kind of man. Not weaker, never weaker, but different in the way he moved through rooms, as though he genuinely believed that the people in them mattered independent of what they could give him. Rio had watched that quality get used against his father more times than he could count, had watched it cost him things that should not have been costable. He had decided very early that he would not make that mistake. And he had not. And there were nights, not many, but some, when he stood at this window and wondered what his father would make of the man he had become. He did not wonder this often. He wondered it tonight. He thought about what she had said in the elevator. "You're not actually as comfortable as you looked yesterday." He had spent 11 years ensuring that no one in his orbit could read him that accurately. He had made it structurally impossible, through distance, through control, through the careful architecture of every interaction. She had done it in a dining room, in a first meeting, without trying. That was not a skill you could train in a person. You either had that quality or you did not. He picked up his phone, set it down, picked it up again. He did not call anyone, but he stayed at the window for a long time. "Stop right here. Before this next part, I need you to predict something. Because what Rio does next, I did not see it coming the first time I heard the story. And I think neither will you. Tell me in the comments. Do you think he pulls her deeper into his world, or does he try to push her out of it completely? Because both of those choices make sense for who he is. And only one of them is what actually happens." The envelope arrived at her hotel room at 7 a.m. the following morning.
No hotel letterhead. No sender identification.
A single sheet of paper inside, folded once. 6 sentences in Korean, handwritten in a script that was clean and precise and entirely undecorated. He had written that he owed her a meeting conducted at the appropriate level of honesty, that the previous meeting had not been that he was requesting the opportunity to correct this if she was willing, that she was under no obligation, that he was aware this request was unusual, that it was nonetheless sincere. She read it 3 times. Her training said decline. Her assignment said accept. She sat on the edge of the hotel bed for 22 minutes, making the same decision 4 different ways and arriving each time at the same conclusion. She wrote back, on hotel stationery in Korean, in handwriting that was also clean and precise and entirely undecorated. She wrote that she would meet him, that she had 2 conditions, that the meeting would be in a neutral location of her choosing, and that he would come without his men. She left the response at the front desk. He came alone. She had not been entirely certain he would. She arrived 3 minutes after the agreed time, not to be late, but to ensure she would not be the one waiting, and found him already there, already seated. No men outside that she could identify. He had come alone. She sat across from him at the small table. For a moment neither of them spoke. The tea house was quiet around them, the kind of old soul quiet that feels like it has been accumulated over decades. Then he looked at her directly, not the oblique watching of the dining room, not the mirror contact of the elevator, directly, with the specific quality of a man who has decided that a particular performance is no longer serving him. "I spoke in a way that was beneath the setting," he said, in Korean. "And beneath you." She said nothing. "I am not apologizing because it is polite. I am telling you because it is accurate." The tea arrived. She wrapped her hands around the cup. "I know the difference," she said. They talked for 2 hours. Not about the network. Not about the investment firm. Not about any of the things that had brought them into the same rooms. He asked her how she had learned Korean. She told him about her first year in Seoul, a graduate placement, age 23, a tiny apartment near Mapo, a neighborhood grandmother who had decided that Lena's Korean was an offense against the language and had taken it upon herself to correct this. 3 evenings a week for 11 months, in exchange for help carrying groceries. She told this story without performance, the way you tell a story you have not told anyone in a long time. He listened in a way she was not accustomed to being listened to, without preparing his response, without waiting for the pause to redirect to himself. She asked him why he had come to the meeting she called. He was quiet for a moment, looking at his teacup. "Because you told me something true about myself," he said. "And I could not remember the last time anyone had done that." She understood that, more than she wanted to admit to herself. "That should not be as rare as it apparently is," she said. "No," he agreed. "It should not." She stayed 2 hours. When she left, she walked back to her hotel through the Mapo side streets. It took 40 minutes. She could have taken a car. She needed the walk, because something had happened in that tea house that her training had no framework for. She had not been performing. She had not been running her cover. She had simply been present, unguarded, talking to someone as though the layers between them did not exist. And the most alarming part was not that she had let that happen. The most alarming part was that he had too. If this story is doing something to you right now, if you feel what I feel every time I tell it, this channel is full of stories that hit exactly like this one.
Subscribe right now.
Because the next story is already waiting for you. The new intelligence came through 48 hours after the tea house. She read it twice.
Slowly.
Then sat very still for a long time. The financial flows she had been tracking, the ones running through the Jang network, had a destination she had not previously identified. Not a corporation, not a shell company, a person, a name that appeared in the investigation files of two separate international agencies. A man who had been untouchable for 11 years because the people who could have testified against him had developed a consistent pattern of ceasing to be available. Rio Jang's network was not Rio's in the way she had assumed. There was someone above him, and the person above him was actively using the Jang infrastructure without Rio's complete knowledge or consent. The evidence suggested Rio had been maneuvered into building something he thought was his, that had been leveraged by someone else without his full understanding of how far that leverage extended. He was not the architect. He was the foundation. She needed to tell someone this. Her organization. The people whose job it was to act on exactly this kind of intelligence. She opened a secure channel, and then she stopped, because she understood, with the precision of someone who had been doing this work long enough to see patterns, exactly what would happen when she submitted this intelligence. The agencies involved would move. They would move on the Jang network because the Jang network was documented and accessible. The man above it, the actual architect, had 11 years of practice making sure that when networks collapsed, the collapse was contained to the layer below him. Rio would take the fall for a structure he had been manipulated into building. She did not know why this felt like the wrong outcome. She closed the secure channel without sending. She sat in front of that screen for a long time. This was not who she was. She did not compromise assignments. She did not protect targets. She did not allow personal proximity to cloud professional judgment. She had watched that happen to other people, and she had filed it under a category she had never expected to need for herself. And yet, she was not pressing send. She went to his office building at 10:30 at night. She had not called ahead. She did not know if she would be allowed through. She stood outside for 2 full minutes thinking about the number of ways this was professionally catastrophic. She had spent her career being the person who never broke protocol, never went off book, never let the human element override the structure. She pressed the intercom. He was standing when she was brought in. Not at his desk, standing near the window, which meant he had been doing what she had been doing. Not sitting. Day closed the door. She did not lead with explanation. Did not preamble. She crossed the office, set a single printed document on his desk, and stepped back. He looked at the document. Not at her. For a long time. When he looked up, his face was carrying something she had not seen on it before. Not in the dining room. Not in the elevator. Not even in the tea house. She had no name for it yet. How long have you known? He asked. 48 hours. And you came here instead of filing it. It was not a question. She did not answer it like one. Someone has been using your network as a buffer for 11 years, she said. You built something you thought was yours. And the moment it becomes useful to let it fall, you'll be the architecture, and he will be invisible. That is not justice. That is a mechanism. He was quiet. Why does that matter to you? He asked. Quiet.
Genuine.
The actual question. She held his gaze. Because I was in that room. I watched you mock me in front of your men. And I watched your face after. You are not the version of yourself that did that. You know you are not. And the man who wrote me 6 sentences in clean Korean at 7 in the morning is not someone who deserves to be the fall for someone else's architecture. The office was completely still. He read the document twice. Then he straightened, looked at her. You could lose everything by being here tonight. Yes, she said. Then why? She did not answer immediately. She thought about the elevator, the tea house, the 11 months of a grandmother correcting her Korean 3 evenings a week, the 3 words she had written in her notebook and crossed out. Because I could not press send, she said, and I needed to understand why. He did not let her leave that night.
Not in the way that sounds.
He asked her to stay, to sit, to think with him. They spent 4 hours in that office going through every document she had, every financial thread, every connection in the network map she had spent 14 months building. He filled in gaps she had not been able to close, named connections she had only estimated, confirmed movements she had flagged as probable. By 3 in the morning they had something neither of them had walked in with. A case. A real one, targeted above the layer she had been sent to map, directed at the actual architect rather than the foundation. At some point she had taken off her coat. At some point he had made tea, badly, he admitted, and she had laughed at his methodology, and he had let himself be laughed at without deflecting or redirecting.
These are small things.
They are not small things. She left at dawn. He walked her to the building entrance, stood at the door. She walked toward the street without looking back. At the edge of the pavement she stopped, turned around once. He was still standing at the door. She looked at him for a moment, the full, clear look of someone who has stopped performing, even the performance of not caring. Then she turned back and kept walking. If this story found someone who needed to hear it tonight, share it. Because sometimes a story about 2 people choosing honesty in rooms designed for everything else is exactly what someone in your life is waiting for. She submitted the report that morning. The real one. The comprehensive one. The one that pointed upward instead of sideways. It would take time. These things always did. There would be complications, reversals, moments when the architecture she had documented would seem to hold against the pressure. But it was in motion now. She sat back in her chair, looked at the Seoul morning through her window.
Her phone rang.
She looked at the screen. Unknown number. Seoul area code. She knew. She answered. You're Korean, he said, without greeting. The grandmother in Mapo. Yes. Was she actually correcting your Korean? Or were you already fluent when you arrived? A pause. The longest pause in the whole story. Both can be true, she said. Silence. Then, something in his voice that was not quite a laugh but was close to one. Both can be true, he repeated. The line stayed open for a moment longer. Neither of them filled it. Then she said, I'll be in Seoul for another 3 weeks. Another pause. I know, he said. And that was everything. And it was enough. But here is what I did not tell you. The man above the network, the architect, he had already been watching. He had seen the intelligence move. He knew something had shifted inside the layer he thought he controlled. And the first name on his list was not Rio Jang. It was the woman who had walked into a dining room 7 weeks ago and refused to be a decoration. Part 2 is already written. And what happens to Lena in the first 48 hours after that report lands? I am not sure you are ready. But subscribe, stay close, and I will see you there.